Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us for pricing at tmosso@the1916company.com. Today we are discussing a true modern classic. This is what's called new vintage. Yes, it's a model launched in 2003, but it represents heritage production from its maker and a collection long since discontinued and a style largely lost to de Bethune's history. This is the Bethune DB8 Chronograph. Launched in only the second year of the brand, 2003, it represented what watchmaker and co-founder of the brand, Denis Flageolet, described as a more contemporary look than the very traditional 2002 DB1 chronograph. So a few big changes: the use of Arabic numerals vertically arrayed instead of Roman numerals, the use of leaf hands rather than breguet hands, less extensive guilloche on the dial, and a single register with 45 minutes displayed rather than a 30-minute chronograph register balanced out by a running seconds hand. The other thing you can see about this watch is that it keeps a lot of what people loved about the original DB1, namely the proportions, the shape, and the solid dial. This is a watch for traditionalists. Modern de Bethune watches are extremely avant-garde. That doesn't play to every crowd. So if you like a more conservative watch, but you love de Bethune's penchant for innovation and historical significance, this is a great way to get into the brand. And these are rare. We commissioned a study of the company's archives, and this company, the 1916 Company, is the majority owner of de Bethune. We found that only about 26 DB8s of all descriptions were made, and only 21, as you see here, in rose gold. So if you've seen brass movement FP Journes discussed as collectibles, well, there are hundreds upon hundreds of those. Early de Bethune products from when the company was making dozens, not hundreds of watches a year, they are collectible like the brass movement Journes. They're just a lot harder to find. So the watch is 42 millimeters in diameter in rose gold. You can see in terms of thickness, quite slender, 9.5 millimeters, and from lug tip to lug tip, 45.7 with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now that sub 46 millimeter lug to lug, along with the relatively thin profile, makes this a universally wearable watch. It's almost lugless, as the lugs barely project beyond the round of the case canister itself. So you could wear this watch on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference, and it is particularly friendly to a tight, low-slung dress sleeve. Taking a look at the strap, you can see that it is far newer than the watch. It is the modern de Bethune style of large rectangular scale alligator leather on the top and then small round scale on the bottom. And the idea here is that instead of having calfskin on the bottom, you have gator, which means it'll cost a few $100s more, but it'll last much longer, and this watch is worth the effort. Jumping back to the other side, you can see it's a semi-gloss finish black. We got a monotone stitch. We have a sheer cut edge that has been lacquered, and then we have a slightly curved spring bar because these lugs are drilled very close to the case, so this allows the strap to move with no impediment to its motion. Rolling over, we have a buckle that's very simple, and traditionally de Bethune buckles are designed to echo the case itself. So if you have a very simple conservative case, you have a very simple conservative buckle. They get wilder on the dream watches, the DB27s and the DB28s. These little torpedo-shaped or bullet-capped lugs, the ogival lugs, were a distinctive feature of the DB1 case series. And right up through about the DB17, you would see these round cases with bullet-tipped lugs. That's known as the DB1 case shape, which stayed with the company through about its first 3 years before a real departures began with the arrival of the DBS in 2005. Now, the dial, again, is more conservative than, say, a DB28, but compared to the DB1, it's a bit more modern, and that's exactly the word that Denis used to describe the DB8 when he spoke to me comparing it to the DB1. But still, lots of classicism. We have a scale for reading our seconds, fractions of seconds, and then minutes. leaf-style hands, rosette guilloche at center, surrounded by a very narrow dental profile. That's called dental because it looks like teeth. Then we have a sunken subregister with a concentric pattern, lovely dark blue printing on silver blue, a color that really resonates with Denis Flageolet, and he likes to use it. This is the beginnings of what would eventually become full-fired blue titanium cases. Now we have a faceted crown that's unbranded. Denis always likes to pay homage to antiquity. It's a monopusher, and you can see that the pusher itself is coaxial with the crown. Historically, pocket watches would not feature branded crowns, so this watch does not. Turning it over, you can see it is a solid case back. And this was a feature of the early de Bethune watches because for the first few years, they used customer calibers. And I want to clarify what that means. The design of the movement in this watch is actually Denis' own, but it was not done under de Bethune's brand. It was done under a white label company called THA that was co-owned at one point by F.P. Journe, Denis Flageolet, and Vianney Halter, and its purpose was to design movements primarily for larger corporate clients. And this particular design, very similar to the THA movement created for the Cartier Tortue Monopusher from the CPCP collection, which is a beautiful manual wind movement with a combination of a column wheel and an oscillating pinion clutch. And so it's a manual wind with a 36 to 40 hour power reserve, a 3 Hz beat rate, and 21 pivot joules. It is very thin, allowing this to be an extremely compact watch. Now, the column wheel gives it crisp action, but the oscillating pinion means that when you press and hold to start the chronograph, an oscillating pinion is a type of a lateral clutch that has a lot less inherent play than a typical lateral clutch, so there's less jump when the chronograph seconds hand starts. So it's a more refined system that de Bethune, F.P. Journe, and Richard Mille have resurfaced recently because it sort of combines the best of a vertical clutch's precision with the traditional beauty of a lateral clutch. And though you can't see the movement, rest assured, it has been elaborately hand-finished. So there is lots to love inside this case. And 30 meters water resistant, but that was back in 2003. I recommend not pushing the limits of water resistance on a 20-year-old watch today. But this is what is called new vintage and a starting point for one of my favorite brands and one of the most consequential independent horology brands in the business. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.